Hello and welcome back to the Empow Her podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Steager. We had an overwhelming response to the last podcast. I'm so excited about that. I had ladies reaching out to me, messaging me on Facebook, texting me, saying thank you so much for having these conversations. Oftentimes, when we're Christians, we don't want to admit that maybe things aren't okay. Last time we talked about emotional trauma and unprocessed trauma and the toll that it takes on our bodies. So we thought we'd stay with that same line, continue that conversation, but this time we're talking about anxiety, stress, and the toll it can take on your body. Today I have with me again Elizabeth Dziaba. Elizabeth is the admin for Ladies Life Ministry of ALC that I coordinate. She's also my daughter. She has her bachelor's in psychology, and she also has a master's in U.S. history with a focus on psychohistory. She loves how the brain works, and it's always a good time talking to Elizabeth about this stuff. She quotes statistics and things that just blow my mind. So we want to give everyone hope, and we want you to understand that you're not alone. We all go through things, Christian or not, but Jesus is our advocate. He's there for us. He wants to help us. We also want to point out again, we are not professionals in any shape of the word. If you are having any type of mental, emotional trauma situations where you need a counselor, a certified counselor, or physical problems where you need a medical doctor, please seek that help. We do encourage that if you go to see a counselor, that it's a Christian counselor, that they are spirit-filled, God-led, submitted to the authority of a healthy pastor in a healthy church. It's so important. It's so important that you get the right advice, especially in the times that we're living in. So with all that being said, we're going to jump right in with Elizabeth, and I hope you're excited for today's show because I know I am. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. And with me again today is Elizabeth Dziaba. If you remember, she was with us in the podcast last time. Welcome back, Elizabeth.
Good to be back.
It's good to be back. All right. And Elizabeth, remember last time we talked with Jody Godfrey, and we were talking about how suppressed emotions have a very traumatic effect on the body. It manifests itself physically, whatever you're thinking emotionally. And we had an overwhelming response to that podcast. I was getting messages, texts after people were, I didn't even realize people were watching it, not even like within our church. There was on the Outer Banks. I had a friend of mine that's up in Michigan actually message me about it. And so I was going to read a little bit of that at the beginning of the podcast today. So I had it queued up right here. And so I'll protect her name because I want to protect her privacy. But she said, I just wanted to say how much I absolutely love your new podcast. It's incredible that you're creating space to talk about mental health. It's so needed, and you're doing it with such honesty and heart. I went through a really rough season, and then she says where she was out somewhere else living, surrounded by Christians who I think genuinely wanted to help me, but were just as confused and overwhelmed as I was. And this she's referencing during the pandemic. That whole time was wild, honestly chaotic and isolating. But hearing you speak so openly reminds me that healing is possible. And if I didn't believe in God before I moved, I definitely do now. Because looking back, I truly don't know how I survived what I did out there without some kind of divine hand guiding me and keeping me sheltered. Keep doing what you're doing. You're helping more people than you realize. And when I read that, I mean, I cry easily, don't get me wrong, right?
Yeah.
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 Lainey, I cry pretty easily. But when I read that, I was so overwhelmed with so much thankfulness to Jesus that He's put on my heart, he's put on the Browns' heart to allow this podcast that we can help other people in our same situations. Elizabeth and I are sitting here today, Lainey behind the scenes over here, who will not come to be in front of the camera, even though she looks cute today. She looks cute today. We said, Lainey, you look cute. Mic up and join us. Lainey said, no. And guess what? Lainey edits this too, so she may edit that whole part out. I don't know what Lainey's going to do, but we're sitting here today, not pompous, pious Christians trying to tell you you'll be okay, pray about it. Yes, you will be okay. And yes, we can pray about it. And yes, the Lord does heal. But we're sitting here today saying, hold on, sometimes life gets crazy. And I could tell, could we not tell, Elizabeth, Lainey, could we not tell? The enemy did not want us doing this podcast today. Every demon in hell came after me this last week. It was crazy. Just everything blowing up in my house and in my car, like nuts, phone calls, and you're going, what in the world is happening? And I could tell that something was trying to stop this podcast. Even today, crazy stuff started happening, and I had to stop everything about 4:00 and just told the Lord, I know you want us to talk about this stuff. And so, Jesus, you're going to have to make a way and help us. Elizabeth, what did we see on the way? Basically surrounding the church.
It was a rainbow.
It was a rainbow. Okay. So, not that we're looking for a sign, but it did feel like we had God's favor on the way. Did it not, Elizabeth? We fought against it. It'll be okay. Anyway, so in our last podcast, if you didn't watch it, please go back and watch it. It was awesome. Jody talked about, in the midst of her grandpa dying unexpectedly, her grandmother developing dementia at the same time, and she's having to work to try, how are we going to care for her? What are we going to do? Helping her clear out her house, like just all these things that really shouldn't fall on the responsibility of a granddaughter if there are, her aunts and uncles and parents, that should really be taking care of that. So Jody was overwhelmed. And then her son, he's up in the middle of the night, kind of sleepwalking. Her husband's like, what are you doing up? And can't catch his attention. And so he goes, hey, Aiden. And it was shocked Aiden, scared him. He cries out and falls to the floor and literally almost scared him to death. We've got EMS coming. He's blue, purple, putting him in the ambulance. And then at the hospital, the doctor says, have you had anything recently that has caused anxiety? And Jody's like, yeah, a little. You can say that, And so the doctor felt that it was just one of those responses, that it was too overwhelming for Aiden. And in a panic, he just lost consciousness and stopped breathing. And then who else did we were talking about? Elizabeth mentioned where people suppress those emotions, they don't deal with traumas, and people who can see normally wake up one day and they're blind.
Yeah.
And so you could tell from my reaction in that podcast, I had never heard this before. And I'm like, because I got a lot of unprocessed trauma, y'all. Okay. And I thought, oh God, don't let me wake up blind tomorrow, And so we are going to talk about pretty much the one that I was getting, the overwhelming response was all about anxiety and what it does to the body. And so we have Elizabeth back, from the last podcast, probably from my intro I recorded too. I probably gave all your credentials, but anyway, she has her bachelor's degree in psychology. She went on for her master's in U.S. history with a focus in psychohistory because she loves how the brain works and kind of what makes it snap. And you probably needed to study that because I'm your mother. Is that why you did that? No? Okay. Anyway, so Elizabeth. Way back, we talked about too in the last podcast that we have been through a couple of really heavy, spiritually abusive situations in two other churches. And after the first one was very violent and really about ended my own life, actually. I was actually suicidal after that happened. My world fell apart, and I'd been betrayed by people closest to me. I had been abused in many ways, spiritually, just all kinds of terrible things. And we end up in our second church up in Michigan. And there was a preacher that came. He's awesome. If you've ever heard Brother Bobby Wade, shout out to Brother Bobby Wade. He will read your mail, y'all.
Yeah.
If you want,
Yep.
you're like, how does he know? You would swear that, like, you wouldn't swear, but you would be convinced that the pastor has been feeding him all the information about the congregation, because the Lord just puts into his understanding through the Spirit what that person needs to hear. So we had never met Brother Wade, and he called my husband and me out of the crowd, and he's like, "You come forward. Is this your wife? You come here." And so he starts reading our mail, and how Jim and I had walls built up around us, and we had put them there to protect. We were going on for God. This was August 2006, and the abusive situation happened in 2005. But he told my husband and me, "You've put walls up around you for protection, but those walls were not from God." And we're like, right? Okay, anyway, so what do you do then? I don't know what to do to protect myself. And then he moves to me, and he's like, "And you, emotions and the effects they have on the body, and where you haven't taken time to process your emotions, and you're having all these physical ailments," and like just one right after the. I was shocked at what he was saying. I had never really heard that before, but I put it back there. And then, of course, all the way home, my husband's going, "See, honey, see, you gotta stop being so emotional. And you gotta, don't be depressed. Don't be like," what? Anyway, so Elizabeth, let's talk about anxiety and the effects that anxiety has on the body. All right. Worrying, sleepless nights, feelings of helplessness. I discovered this thing before the podcast, and I'm texting Elizabeth, "What about this vagus nerve? What's that all about?" Right? Because it's the most important nerve in the body. Lainey, I was sending, like, "Oh, you've got to watch this guy," but I sent the wrong link. Elizabeth sent the right link. Anyway, "You've got to watch this guy. He's talking about this vagus nerve and how it's like the most important and largest nerve in the body that goes from the brain to the heart, to your gut." All right, anyway, Elizabeth, jump right in. Talk about the vagus nerve and parasympathetic. She's going to be talking all this, not babble. It's not babble.
We call it psychobabble.
It's psychobabble. Okay, all right. Psychobabble away, Elizabeth. Tell us.
Okay, so when anxiety comes, it has a purpose in the short term. So if you're anxious, it's probably because there's a problem and you're going to fix it. So your body will activate adrenaline and cortisol.
Okay.
Adrenaline will activate your fight or flight response.
Okay.
Cortisol will do things like it makes your body create glucose. It increases your blood pressure, and it makes it boosts your immune response. So it does all these things in the short term that are really helpful to deal with whatever situation you have. The problem comes when you don't react to it correctly. You stay anxious longer than you should. Your cortisol stays active longer, which then will suppress the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that calms your body.
Oh.
So if your vagus nerve isn't calming you, your heart rate's going up, your blood pressure's going up, your stomach isn't acting right.
Right.
It can hurt your vocal cords. It's all sorts of things. It will also suppress serotonin, dopamine, melatonin. You won't be able to sleep. If you can't sleep, your body will not repair itself. Cortisol can also damage your muscles and bones. And if you don't sleep, releasing growth hormone, your tissues and muscles and bones won't repair themselves. So it kind of creates a cascade effect.
Does it also affect like brain fog, where you just cannot think straight?
Yep, you won't be able to think straight. That's because the I think it's the hippocampus is responsible for changing short-term memory into long-term memory. and it won't activate it. So you just won't be able to think straight anymore because your body isn't cataloging those memories where they're supposed to go. It can also, so it heightens the amygdala with the fear response. So you're in a constant state of fear, and that's in the sympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve is in the parasympathetic nervous system. So as long as your sympathetic nervous system is dominant, your parasympathetic nervous system won't work.
And then the sympathetic nerve system is the thing that reacts, right? Yep. So if you're negatively reacting and then you don't kind of fix that, then you continue to negatively react, then the body negatively reacts, and then you continue to it's like a snowball effect.
It creates a cascade effect, and it also gives your brain that pathway of this is just how we react to things. This is how we always react to it. And so it will just keep you in that state.
And then the parasympathetic, do they refer to that as like kind of like rest? Like you're just like,
Yeah, I heard it called something funny. It was rest and digest.
Okay, rest and digest.
That was funny. But yeah, that's where you're at rest. Everything is kind of resetting and just chilling out.
You know, I'd watched a podcast earlier. I think I may have sent it to you, but the doctor that was on there, he's a cardiologist. He was talking about it, and he was saying, do not eat in the car. And I'm like, don't eat in the car. I eat in the car all the time, right? Because your body cannot, even though you think you've mastered it and you're going through the drive up, okay, boom, choo, 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 go down the road. He said your body cannot do two things at once really and really well, and it actually stresses the body. So therefore you're releasing the cortisol, and therefore the vagus nerve is doing whatever it's doing, and then you will not digest well, and then you're like sick to your stomach or the other myriad of things. But you know, and that amazed me, because now I'm like, I can't eat in the car anymore. What's going on? But I don't want to do something to keep me in some sympathetic state, because he was saying like the immune system with all the inflammation, and then when it's in sympathetic and you're sympathetic, and then it causes further inflammation in the body, and then that makes that worse, shutting down I just could not believe the cascade effect of
just about everything is really connected. Like your brain, all these nerves, all the centers of emotions and everything, it just cascades into every other part of your body. And yeah, that's how I think people will end up where they're just blind, because it's all in there. It's all in the brain. And so it's just all interconnected.
And so then that amazes me too. We didn't just crawl out of the pond, right? You know, Jesus created this amazing system. What has us stuck there, Elizabeth? Like why is anxiety so prevalent today?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons that could be. You know, back when we didn't have as much technology and everything, you needed to be anxious about stuff that could hurt you, because it would keep you going and protect you and stuff. And now we just don't need that as much. So I think we have more time to focus on things that we don't necessarily need to focus on. I think smartphones have really affected that. I think it's...
Didn't you talk about, like, you were reading a book the other day, The Anxious Generation?
Yep, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Yep.
Yeah. And tell a little bit about that.
It's basically, you can actually see an exponential increase in anxiety, and starting in like the early 2010s. So not right when the iPhone came out, which is about 2007, but as it started to get more ability to be connected to the internet constantly, when you got things like Instagram and Facebook that were on your phone and you could be on them all the time, it creates a dopamine boost when you get a like, when you look through things. And so it ends up kind of replacing the natural things that we would do that with, and with the answers to everything at your fingertips. You're not working for anything. Yeah, and so like it makes everybody where everything's just right there, and then there's no gratification of waiting and working towards something, because it's all right there.
And then isn't it too, and I don't know a lot about this, so you'll have to tell me if you do, but like blue light that comes from the computer screens, from the monitors, from your phone.
Any scientist or doctor or anything will tell you to not look at blue light when you're trying to go to sleep, because it messes messes up your sleep cycle, your circadian rhythm. It just destroys it.
And circadian rhythm is when, like, you wake up when the sun comes up and then you go to sleep when the sun
Yep.
goes down type stuff, you know? Okay, all right. There was, back when I was going through, oh my goodness. So when things kind of got wild, and I think I talked about it in the last podcast, but 2019, when the church came to me and said, hey, would you do this ladies ministry? And I took a while to answer back. And then that next year was the pandemic, and was also the election. And my husband, I love you, Jim, if you're watching this, which he will watch this. I love you. He was so riled up over the election. He was so riled up over the virus. I don't know if I want to say the word right. Is that flagged usually on YouTube or
Probably.
something? And I was sitting at work one day, and this is when everything kind of really started up of the crazy. But that summer before was when I had my first bout of diverticulitis. I ended up in the ER in late June, July, right after the church came to me and said, would you like to do a ladies ministry? And then bang, all of a sudden I'm getting sick when I never got sick before like that. Roll into December at the end of 2020, and I'm sitting there and I'm working. I worked with a cardiologist in pulmonology, and I'm there sitting with some patients. And these patients, because it's a heart or lung doctor, right? These patients were older, and I love them. I love them, but they come in and sit around, sit around in the waiting room, kind of like the older guys that come in and they're in that corner cafe and they're talking about the election and they're talking about, you know, solving the world's problems, right? But I was getting a constant, steady, just conversation about these things that had me nervous, had me stressed out. I couldn't go to work and escape it. I couldn't come home and escape it, because you want to listen. I want to listen to my husband. He comes home from work and he has a high stress job. He's a mechanical engineer. He's an engineering manager. He's been with the company coming up 38 years, you know, go Jim. And, but he has a pretty high stress job. And so you want to listen to him. But boy, when you were hearing about the politics and the medical, you know, all the stuff with the pandemic and everything, one day I'm sitting there at work and I'm just high stress and I'm chewing some gum. And I'm chew. And all of a sudden, I hear the loudest pop in my ear, in my jaw. And my jaw locked for a moment, could not close it. Well, that's a nightmare for people who know me. Did she ever close her mouth? Anyway, but a loud pop, whatever. And we thought that I could have had something happen, kind of a lockjaw thing, where it's called the articular disc, where we thought that it had floated back behind this mandibular joint in my jaw, and because it sits between the temporal bone and then the mandible there, and so right here, so we thought that it had slipped back here and kind of locked my jaw for a bit, and then the pain was excruciating, Elizabeth. I couldn't even eat scrambled eggs. Like, I bawled every morning trying to even eat breakfast. And we didn't find out till last year what was really wrong, because they finally ended up doing an MRI. And that articular disc that we were hoping would, like, just float like a little fairy, like right back into play. No, like an angel. Sorry, I did not mean to make a fairy reference, but like a little angel, just right back into place. And the MRI showed that disc didn't just float back, it actually bisected. It tore in half. And so right now, to this day, I can only open my jaw this wide. I can't eat a cupcake. Leslie doesn't need to eat cupcakes. It's okay, Leslie. You know, can't, you know, just open your mouth wide, just chew like a big burger or something. You can't do that either. I mean, obviously I've been eating, but, you know, but it bisected. So half was anterior and half was posterior. So I've got bone on bone with moderate arthritis in that jaw now. So every day is a lot of pain. And they found like just all this stuff wrong in there. And I'm like, what? And then you thought that was, I felt kind of like Job a little. I felt like a little like Job. because after they found that, and then the next doctor came in and said, oh, and by the way, you've got Eagle syndrome. Oh, and by the way, okay. Anyway, so during that time, I got connected with a chiropractor who practices both holistic and medical medicine, because he was also a sports medicine doctor, and his name's Dr. Darren Taylor. And when I went in to see him at first, because they wanted me in massage therapy, because all of this stuff, the inflammation, all of the diverticula in my gut, the arthritis, every autoimmune, my asthma, like all these things, it was just like caving in.
Yeah.
And my stress off the charts. You couldn't even talk to me without me, somebody, how you doing? I'm okay with that, And so I get in with him, and he's listening to my story, and he's, saying, okay, I would get this supplement and that supplement and things. And then he looks at me. Oh, and I brought it for today. Hold on. He said, have you ever heard of this book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk? And it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he said where, brain, mind, and body, and healing and trauma. And I told him a few things we had been through. And he was talking about how that unprocessed trauma and then all the anxiety since just has flowed through my body, and systems were just shutting down. And I was absolutely amazed at that. Anyway, I read it. Now, this, I will give kind of a caution to reading this book. There are a lot of very sensitive topics. There are testimonials of what some of this man's patients have been through. Dr. van der Kolk is the one who came up with the term PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. He was seeing a lot in like veterans that were coming back from war, and he was the one who, no, let's not zap their brains. Let's see what's going on here. But amazing. But there are a lot of very, very, very sensitive topics, testimonials in there. So I would just caution you, maybe go on YouTube. There was one that said like, kind of summarizing it without all the triggers, and so maybe look at some of those that have really done like some type of review of this book, because I have to admit, like I was reading some of the people's situations they were in, and I would cry for them because it's so bad. But it explained what I was going through. So, Elizabeth, you and I, there are also physiological type causes too, of things that, like, I was listening to Shara McKee she did an Indiana District Ladies Conference, and she was talking about at one point in time where she was so overwhelmed, and she came in, and she's a pastor's wife, and she would go to church, put on the face, pretend everything was okay. And she preached about this. It's online. So I think it's okay that I say this. Sister McKee, I hope it's okay I'm talking about this. But it impacted me deeply at this. I think it was in 2022 when she preached at, spoke, did a message, whatever she does, at Indiana District Ladies Conference. And she was saying she would go to church, and she would do the part of a pastor's wife. She would come home. She would go straight to her bedroom, lay down on the couch, and no one was to come in the doors. And it went on, I think, for months that way. And she just felt so low and really couldn't talk about it, because you're a pastor's wife. Right. You're a Christian, right? You should be relying on God. And what is wrong with you if something's wrong with you, And she said finally she went and had a blood test. She had like a myriad of tests ran, and it came back that she had a very severe iron deficiency.
Yeah, that'd do it.
That'd do it. And then when I got back home, I went right away, and they found that I had a very severe vitamin D deficiency. What happens when you're low in vitamin D, Elizabeth, to the body?
Vitamin D can actually even, it can do a lot of things to you. It'll make you tired, it'll do brain fog, and all that stuff. But if it gets bad enough for long enough, it can also damage all of your internal organs. So it really is important to get vitamin D checked,
Yeah.
often. And most people are deficient to some extent in vitamin D, as we just don't spend as much time outside as we used to. And
Right.
it's hard, depending on the climate you're in, to get as much vitamin D as you need from the sun.
Sure.
So a lot of people do actually need a supplement,
Yeah.
and that can help boost your mood and all sorts of things,
Yeah.
really.
And once again, what Elizabeth and I are talking about this, we are not medical
Yeah,
doctors.
no.
We are not
Yeah.
trying to diagnose anyone. We're just sharing our experience. Again, we encourage you, please talk to your physicians.
Mhm.
If you are so down, so far down, you feel like all you can do is look up,
Mhm.
right? One, that's usually where Jesus will meet you,
Yeah.
by the way, right? He's close to the brokenhearted,
Yeah.
right? Saves that which be of a contrite and broken spirit. And but if you're down, you don't understand what's going on, nothing you do is working, talk to your doctor, get them to run tests, get the blood
Yeah.
work done, have them run everything.
Yeah, I did when
You know.
when back with our second church experience, I
Mhm.
started having really weird symptoms, and I was like, well, I'm just stressed out because I know anxiety can cause all these issues and stuff.
Sure.
But then it kept going on and kept going on and kept getting worse.
Sure.
And it was to the point where I was just like fainting
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'd wake up and Eric's like, are you okay? And it's like, I don't know, like maybe.
I mean, what happened? I don't
And
even
so
know.
I went to several doctors, and they just didn't really help that much.
Yeah.
But they didn't know what to look for. They were like, well, you have this and this and this. Maybe you're just stressed out. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
but something felt deeper wrong,
Sure.
And so I was stressed out, and I did need to address that. But I ended up looking up a bunch of different blood tests related to the hypothyroidism,
Sure.
and found a full thyroid panel.
Yeah.
Asked for it, and it turned out I had the autoimmune version of thyroid
Yeah.
issues, and I needed different medication
Yeah.
and some other things, and that it helped a lot with all the stuff.
Right.
But you do still have to address the underlying anxiety causes as well. So I think a combination approach of medical and psychological to whatever kind of support you need, a combination is usually the best.
And then we should say too, because I want to kind of go into that area just a little bit. Uh-oh. Leslie's crossing the line. Here comes the Rubicon. I'm going over it. But the second church situation, our children were older. And so, like
Yeah.
Elizabeth had just gotten married.
I think I was 21.
21, yeah.
Yeah.
And CJ was just 18 then at
Yeah.
that point, or getting ready to turn 18. And so in our second situation, what was more difficult about it this time, it wasn't as difficult for Jim and me because the situation, although horrific, we had already, we've been there, we've done that, different situation, and, but we were seasoned, we got it. Our children were older now, and they had friends.
Yeah.
And those friends turned against them. I think about David, where he wrote, how I went up with them into the Lord's house. We sat and we ate together. And this was my friend, my own familiar friend. We ate bread together, And when you're that close to people, I mean, her best friends were like my second daughters. We took her best friend on vacation with us, fully paid, like to Disney for a couple weeks and 10 days, probably 11 days, something like that. Something there. And because they were just like my own little babies, they were just so precious, and we still love them. We should say too, we forgive everyone in our previous church situations. They had things that they were dealing with in their own lives, and we don't hold anything against any of them. We love them. If we would see them out and about today, we'd say hi, and everything would be okay. I wish them well. I pray for them, but when you go through stuff like that, and we were talking last time how it's hard to open up to a friend.
Yeah.
And then what happens if that friend is no longer a friend at some point? And we know how that feels, right? So Elizabeth, what we've wanted to talk about is, okay, we've got the physical side over here, we've got the natural side over here. You were telling me earlier
Yeah.
that if someone is in a Christian environment, in a healthy church, how does that affect anxiety? Like, what are the statistics there?
So people that are in a good church situation that is healthy, have a good support system, they attend regularly, are about 33% less likely to experience anxiety or depression. They're 5 times less likely to commit suicide. Over a meta-analysis of over 400 studies, 79% of those studies showed a high correlation to religious involvement and just better mental health outcomes, more life satisfaction. They're generally happier people. There's just a level of social connection there that you don't get in a lot of other situations. And social connection also impacts the vagus nerve and makes you calm down. It activates that nerve because you have other people. They said that when you have someone else to share burdens with you, it makes your own lighter because you feel like someone is there with you and helping you out. And that is one of the main functions of church situations, is that you just have other people that are like-minded that want to help you. They offer better coping mechanisms than other places can. And then any church that offers like hope, social connection, and then like a method of controlling your circumstances usually has the best outcomes.
Okay. So find a good, healthy church. And when you are in situations where maybe things weren't like you thought they were, I'm just going to encourage everyone, power through that. I have family today that they aren't going to church because they've been hurt in a church. They were in the same church we were, but the hurt was directed directly at our little family, my husband, me, and my children. And I realize everybody doesn't deal with grief and let down in the same way. So I don't say that in any type of judgmental way. It's just when people realize that you are going to church for God, not men, not people, not, of course you're going to want to go and love people, of course, because you're in the kingdom of God. And he says the thing that's going to set you apart is that you have love for one another, so of course, gotta love people. But I would just encourage people that you've been in a church and you've been hurt, find another church. And if that one doesn't work out, find another church, and I'm not saying go church jumping. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if there's something really severely wrong, just keep on the path, don't give up, right? We need to also point out too, when you are having all this anxiety, you can do the natural things, and you should do the natural things. You need to seek help, get set up with a mental health professional, go for counseling with a spirit-filled, God-submitted Christian counselor. I cannot tell you how important that is. I had a best friend who she had been in counseling 4 years with a counselor. And this was before she had been in with this counselor before I had met her. And so she had continued a little bit until after I met her. And she wasn't in any type of church. She didn't know anything Jesus, And when I found out she was in counseling, I'm like, okay, well, what worksheet activities, like what are they giving you to work through? And she's like, I've never had anything no exercises, nothing. And I'm like, you realize you're his cash cow, right? This was after I got to know her a little better, but I didn't see any betterment. That she wasn't getting any better. And if that counselor is just letting you come in every week and you're crying the blues every week. Does that sound insensitive? I'm sorry. But if you're going in and you're just hashing up the same old thing, and they're not giving you something to work through, and the reason I can say this is because my husband and I, in 2005, after that church situation, the first one that nearly killed me, I was in counseling for 6 months. And I was on Lexapro for 6 months because I couldn't make it through. And yes, I needed to rely on God. And I'm telling you, if it weren't for Jesus, I wouldn't be sitting here today. So it had to be kind of, you do what you can do, but then give to God what only God can do. Because our efforts are never going to be enough. And so I'm telling her, you got to get in with so now, thankfully, she's in with a better counselor. Her marriage is thriving, and she's doing really well. But I think what we need to tell the people, right, Elizabeth? Satan's goals, the thief's purpose is to steal and to kill and to destroy. But God's purpose is to give you life and give it more abundantly, right? I go back to, what's his name, Mark? Who's the comedian guy? Mark Lowry. Yeah. And he was talking about he's come to give you life and give it more abundant. What's life? You know, and he's like bills and whatever. And if you're right, and then if you think things are going well, you know, that's great, you know, but it'll change in a little bit, right? It came to pass, and that is favorite scripture. And if you think things are going good, right? This too shall pass. And it came to pass. And it came to pass. I can still hear him say it. So he's saying basically, if things are bad, hold on, they're going to get better. If things are good, hold on.
That's about right.
Anyway, that cracks me up. But anyway, so the devil, he's come to kill your body and soul. Remember, the Lord wants you to worship him with all your body, all your mind, all your power, all your strength, all your soul, all your heart. And so if there's anything that he can kill, didn't I just name off everything that the body does, right? He's going to get in there. He's going to cause the anxiety. He's going to get you fixated on it. He's going to make you think that there is no hope. He's come to steal your joy and hope. He's come to destroy your faith in Jesus and your relationships. That's what the enemy does. Yeah. I'm thinking about like Adam and Eve. Were we talking about this the other day? About the devil, right? The devil's been around since God created the angels, and then Lucifer at the time, right? Went through a name change. Anyway, did I snort? I'm so sorry if I snorted. Anyway, it goes through this name change. Now he's Satan. But anyway, but God created the heaven and the earth and everything in it, creates man. And God and Adam are there like palling around for a while. And then God says, you know, I'm kind of sad for Adam. Let's make him a wife, right? It shouldn't be alone. And so he creates Eve. And it's not until God creates Adam and Eve, the marriage, right, that then Satan comes along and wants to destroy it because it's a relationship. And we, the church, are God's bride. And so remember, if Satan's trying to destroy everything, he wants to destroy your faith in Jesus. He wants to destroy your relationships. And the brain controls 3 areas of your life, right? Your mind, your body, and your relationships. And so in the marriage in the Garden of Eden, what did Satan do? He comes in and he introduces doubt. Right? He's got to make you doubt God. Did God really say you shouldn't eat the fruit? Did God really say you die? Did he really say that, Eve? And so the devil just wants to get in our brains, and he wants us starting to doubt the power of God. He wants us to doubt that the Lord can heal and do. He wants you to doubt that Jesus loves you. Right? And so if he can get, like Elizabeth was saying, you get that negativity in there, and then it breeds negativity, and then more negativity, and pretty soon it's a cycle that you're going to have a hard time breaking without help,
Mhm.
right? So, and we know too, Pastor preached yesterday. Oh, Pastor did an awesome job yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Dallas the week before.
Mhm.
So Brother Dallas Cole had preached on Wednesday before. Our desire is one thing, right? How was it, Lainey? What was the title of the message?
Isn't it one desire to rule them all? Was
One
like
desire. That was
yeah,
it. Thank you. Because one desire to rule them out. And Dallas was talking about your relationship with God, and your desire should be to please Him and to live after Him. Oh, it was so awesome. And then Pastor picks up that gauntlet and runs with true worshipers, right? And so Dallas's take on it was about what we as worshipers should be desiring is God. He's our one desire. What does God desire? Those that are going to worship Him in spirit and truth. He's looking for those with a perfect heart. He quoted one of my favorite scriptures. It's 2 Chronicles 16:9, where it says that the eyes of the Lord roam to and fro throughout the whole earth to show Himself strong in behalf of those whose hearts are perfect toward Him. And so think about that. No matter what's going on in your life, the Lord is always looking to show Himself strong on your behalf. I don't care what lies the enemy has told you. I don't care what lies people have told you. Pastor said the Lord came to guide us into all truth. And He started in this big thing, right? All truth, not only truth of the word and truth of who Jesus Christ really is and the truth of the salvation you were going to need, but truth, whatever lies that have been heaped on you that you believe. And then my husband's over there, I was like, oh, I'm bruised now, Jim, quit hitting me. I'm just kidding, he wouldn't hit me. But I have a very bad tendency that if someone says something about me, I take it and let it sit. Elizabeth, you talked last time that women do that, right?
Yep.
We're
more emotional creatures, and we assign emotions to memories.
Right.
And so it just makes them stronger and more powerful, and we just take the negative right into ourselves.
Yeah. Her dad, somebody can say boo at Jim, and he's like, yeah, who cares? Someone says boo at me, I'm like, oh, how could they? Right? And it takes me a while to get over it.
Well, and I think part of that is that you think, well, what if they're right?
Yeah.
Like, and you don't go through the thing that men will go through where they rely more on the rational thing. It's just like, well, it's not true, so
yeah, so whatever.
And so you think like in yourself, like, but what if they're right?
Right.
Yeah.
I hate, and you said because we have all this estrogen and stuff, we're a little more likely to do that. It's
kind of because if women are if they have higher testosterone, they tend to not do that as much as well.
Elizabeth, I wanted to talk to you about your pregnancy, right? Elizabeth was, I left the medical field because after the pandemic, it just got to be too much on me, like just watching everybody dying and being sick and people being very afraid. Boy, that enemy wants to come and heap fear on you, and it got to where I just couldn't take it. My jaw was all yanked up and just it was just too much. And so I tendered my resignation, and I didn't want to because I worked with the most amazing doctor. I've known her, oh my goodness, all my children's lives. Her dad actually was the one who delivered me. So, and then she delivered my babies. But right after I tendered my resignation, it was May 10th. And then my last day was going to be May 28th of 2021. And right in the middle was my birthday. And my husband and I, he'd taken me out of town for my birthday, and right when we got back in, my daughter was like, can we come over for your birthday? Can we come over for birthday? Is it your birthday? I'm like, okay, I'm a little tired from the trip, but okay. I mean, I guess so. All right, okay. But I thought, how sweet. They want to celebrate my birthday. Okay. So Elizabeth comes over, and how did you let me in on it?
I just was like, hey, I got something to show you.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, what is that? I was like, it's just a picture. And then it was a picture of the test on the thing. And she was like, ah! And it was
So on my birthday, she told me she was pregnant, and we were just so excited. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I've left my job, and I can just be grandma, except they call me Gian. And then we are, so May 28th was my last day. June 1st, we're sitting at Madeline and Grayson's wedding, friends of ours, and I'm getting these texts from Elizabeth. Oh my gosh, Mom, I'm so sick. I'm throwing up. I can't keep anything down. And at the time, I'm like, I mean, yeah, morning sickness. I'm so sorry you're going through this, morning sickness. And then the next day, oh, I'm so sick and I can't keep anything, da, da, da. And I'm like, well, I mean, welcome to babyhood, welcome to mommyhood. The third day, so it was a Friday, right? I went over to Elizabeth's, and this still haunts me, Elizabeth. I get there, and Elizabeth didn't have just normal morning sickness. Elizabeth had life-threatening morning sickness. She couldn't keep anything down. A sip of water, like nothing. Because I'm telling her, oh, the rice diet. Not rice, what's it called? Rice is rest ice. Remember my ankle. Remember, everybody, my ankle. Look, it's broken. So we're going to. ABC diet. Yes, applesauce, banana crackers. That's it.
Couldn't keep that down either.
Couldn't keep that down. No keeping that down. And when I saw her, and I still have the picture of it, dark circles under her eyes, emaciated, pale, just horrible. I felt terrible, but it was then that I knew why the Lord had me leave my position so I could be there for my daughter. And then what ends up happening is I am like there every day for her. And finally at the end of the second trimester, where it looked like she was calming down a bit, even to your baby shower in October, they had to pull off the side of the road so you could throw up.
I threw up twice on the side of the road.
And so we get through the baby shower, and it was so sweet and everything. Like what, the next day? 2 days later, whatever.
It was whatever my next appointment was.
She goes to the doctor, only to find out that little Isabella is lying on her vena cava in her right aorta. And we were told that she had to have someone with her 24/7. And if she even rolled to her right side to sleep, she would have a massive heart attack. And so this stress, and now not only on your body, of course, hello, but mommy here, I'm going to protective mode, right? So we get Elizabeth through that. Is there anything you want to add about kind of the anxiety? I think you were so sick you couldn't be anxious.
I
don't
too
know.
sick, truly, because they, they put me on Phenergan pretty early on, and it went from where I couldn't keep food down for about a minute to with the Phenergan I could keep it down for about 20 minutes. And so it helped a bit there for a while, but I was still vomiting over 10 times a day throughout most of the pregnancy until about that end of that second trimester. And then even then I was still throwing up, but then it was the heart thing that ended up being the bigger concern. And I had that little pillow. That
have a little wedge.
I had a little
Get
wedge
a little
pillow,
rear end up on there.
So it tilted you to the one side. But I was too tired to be that stressed. But I remember after like really bad bouts, I would just hold my belly and be like, baby, we're in this together. We're going to be okay. Jesus has got us. We're going to make it one way or another.
I've got to correct Elizabeth here for a second. There you go. It wasn't, oh, baby.
No,
she was a moose. She was a moose when she was pregnant. She was huge. I was like, how is she even holding that?
They said I didn't have anywhere else to go. But
I mean, it
was bad. It was bad.
It was funny, though. Anyway, I just called her Moose during that whole time. But reason we're telling this is because Jesus comes in like a flood when you are having life-threatening, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical. The Lord is there for you, and he's looking constantly, especially for his little sheep, because he's our shepherd. He wants to protect you. He's looking to show himself strong in your behalf. So she has Isabella. It was a rough delivery. I came in, and they're calling me. Elizabeth's like, Mommy, or were you texting me? you've got to get up here.
think I was
Nothing's
texting, yeah.
moving, nothing's
Mhm.
going. I get up there and I just start praying over her, and I didn't care who heard it, right? And within how many minutes, here comes that you went
Like
from,
3. Yeah,
yeah, she went
yeah.
from a 3 to dilated and let's push. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
Jesus, let's do
it
it.
went from 2 to 7
Yeah,
in like 15 minutes,
yeah.
and then 7 to 10 in like another like 20.
Like it went very fast. And she
Yeah.
had labored all night
It was, I
long
think,
and into
17
that
hours.
next day. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was over 17 hours. And so, and it just wasn't moving. Things were
And
not
then they
moving
gave me
along.
an epidural to try to move it, and then the epidural
And the
didn't
epidural
work.
didn't work.
So
So
that was
it was
great.
point of all this,
Yeah.
she has the baby. Everything's fine. Looks just like her daddy. She's
Yeah.
going to be a big, tall daddy's
Yeah.
girl. That's what she's going to be. She's beautiful. And Elizabeth just wants to go home after that first night. What they do not tell her about, though, is second night syndrome.
Yeah, I said,
Elizabeth, what's
yeah.
second night syndrome?
Second night syndrome is where your baby just screams all night for no reason because the birth was traumatic. They want to be back inside mommy, and they're not.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when I asked, I said, is there anything I should know about? Is there any problems that might arise or anything?
Yeah.
No, she'll probably just be really, really tired. I'll bet she'll just sleep on you the whole night. She did not.
No,
not at all.
So what ends up happening is that night that they're home, I start getting texts around 10 o'clock, and Elizabeth saying, Isabella's scream crying, and she won't stop. And then 11-ish, still crying. 11:38, still crying. And then for a while, y'all must have just like dealt with it for a bit.
So what happened is Eric let me go to sleep for a couple hours because I was still in quite a bit of pain.
Sure.
And so he rocked her in her chair.
Okay.
And I was like, he didn't wake me up for a little bit. So I thought she had calmed down, but he said she didn't calm down.
Okay.
It was just that he
would
was able
calm
to
down
kind of,
enough for a few minutes
where
it wasn't like you need to take her to the ER or something, but yeah.
Yeah, no, we didn't deny her medical care or
Sure,
anything.
yeah,
No, she was just, he would get her kind of calm and she'd kind of nod off and then she'd be upset again.
Sure.
And so it was just kind of that cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then I get another text around 3 something, whatever. She's still crying, still screaming. 3:05, I think it was. And the reason I know these numbers is because I looked it up, because I never delete my text history with my children. And so I'm like, your dad and I are praying right now. And so we prayed and we prayed and we prayed and we prayed. And then what was it, about 4:30 something? I text you and say, okay, Jesus has this. It's going to be all right, because you're like totally manic, and one would be, and one would be. And then around 5:30 something, you said, okay, I feel calm now, right? And what happened in that time? So my husband goes back to sleep, because men do.
Yeah.
They just do. And I'm just up still worried, which I know, but I was worried. I was. And I'm just praying and I'm weeping, and Jim's here sleeping beside me. He doesn't hear me, and I wasn't weeping quietly, okay? Like I was wailing for my daughter. And I opened my eyes, and from me basically to the wall over here, I don't know what, 10 feet or something over here, the doors swung open, and I look up. And as I have cried out to God to help my daughter, I look up to see an angel standing at the end of my door, as tall as my ceiling, 8 feet in that room. And he's just like this, and he has a sword in his hand, and he's just there quiet. It's like a whitish kind of figure. And I'm not believing what I'm seeing, right? But I'm crying out to him, if you are an angel of the Lord, go to my daughter and help her. And he vanishes. And then I get this text from Elizabeth, and she said, I feel very calm now. I think I'm going to try to go to sleep. And she does. So the next day I tell Elizabeth, this is what happened. This angel was there. I swear it's true. Whatever. And then you tell me what happened in that moment. At the same time, what happens in your house, Elizabeth?
Yeah, so I have 2 doggies, a corgi and a dachshund. And so Lily was over here next to Eric because she's Eric's dog. Eric was sleeping. Maximus was right next to me because he's my dog. And then I was sitting with Isabella in my arms. And Lily was just restless. She could not sit still. Eric, very, very restless. He'd been up all night too. So I was like, please get some sleep. Maximus sitting up, looking at everything, looking at the baby, you know, checking out what's going on. Izzy, of course, you'd get her calm, she'd start crying again. You'd nurse her, she'd start crying again. It was just like that thing. And so as we're all sitting there, I see like wings just come up and go over like this, go over everybody. So Lily goes to sleep, silent. Eric goes to sleep, quiet. Maximus literally drops down quiet as this passes over. As it goes over Izzy, she just sinks down into my arms and finally falls asleep. And then it falls over me like it draped. And it just was like, okay, everything's going to be fine. And yeah, it just, all the anxiety left. She was completely settled and just fine. I think she slept until about 7, and she got up, she went fed again.
Sure.
And then she slept till about 10, and so I was able to sleep for a little while there.
So I wanted to tell everybody that I've never told that publicly before. I've told some people about it, but not like in a forum like this. But God is there wanting to help you. My friend that I read at the beginning of the podcast, her next message to me, I said, oh my goodness, is there anything I can do to help? Her next message to me was, I think I'm beyond help. No one is beyond help. You are not beyond help. Do everything you can, get the help that you can, but I'm telling you that God wants to show up and show himself strong on your behalf. I had never seen an angel like that. I mean, as if it was standing right there, like I could touch it. Him, I don't mean call it, but, you know, touch the angel. And then they just dispatch and go. And then she's over here. We don't know what's happened in each other's home. She describes this to me. And I am just, you better believe when I heard this, I was laid out on the floor, screaming, crying to God, thanking him for doing this for my daughter, because she was so hopeless and helpless. And that's in the natural. There will be times like that. We all go through times like that. Elizabeth and I are sitting here talking to you today, not because we've all of a sudden achieved some level of amazingness and we want to impart to you what to do, how, to be amazing like us. We are messes. Yeah. Lainey, aren't we messes? You know this, don't you? Lainey knows. But, I was reading this. It was on Christianity.com, and it says, according to 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. God has told us over 100 times in his word not to be afraid, because he is in control and is our refuge and strength. God has given us a spirit of power, love, judgment, personal discipline, calm, a well-balanced mind, self-control, and not a spirit of timidity, cowardice, or fear. And where was the other? Let me see. There was one other little thing that was so cool on here. And this says, because remember, God created you, every part of you. So he created the emotions that you feel. Yeah. If you're feeling anger, it's a secondary emotion. Something else is going on. So if you're feeling fear, something's wrong. If you're feeling anxiety, something's wrong. It's trying to tell you, okay, what's going on and what do I need to fix? But most importantly, we've got to give all of our cares, right? It says, cast all your care upon him, for he careth for you. He cares for you. Go and talk to him. Right? This other it's called biblicalcounselingcenter.org. And there was a really amazing article, maybe I can get Jody to link it below, how Jesus addressed fear, worry, and anxiety. And it was talking about how our emotions are reflecting what is going on in our hearts, values, and thinking. When our values align with God's values, we're going to understand what is most important and live out his purpose for our lives. If that enemy can get in there and he can start making you doubt, making you think there's no power in God, making you hopeless. You are never going to live out your purpose for God, and that is what the enemy wants. And so I'm going to encourage you all today that God is your refuge and strength. He's a very present help in the time of trouble, okay? And we just need to, like Jeremiah 33:3 says, we've got to call unto him, and he's going to answer us and show us great and powerful things like we never even knew could possibly happen. Like that angel standing at the door. People probably think I'm crazy. I am. But it happened. And no one can refute it. It happened. My husband laid there asleep the whole time, and I am like screaming, crying out to that angel, go. And he did, because God loves me, and he loves you that much too. And Psalm 91:1 says, for he will order his angels to protect you wherever you go. Now, I'm not trying to say this as some like we need to worship angels and all that stuff. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a God who created you. He created your emotions, and he wants you to prosper. He wants you to have good things happen in your life. And we don't always understand the bad things that happen, but I will tell you one thing. Every bad thing that has ever happened to me and the devil's tried to get me to give up has only made me stronger, right? I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. We're going to probably keep on this mental health issue for a while. Our next podcast, we'll be talking to probably Elizabeth again and Brittany Cole. We're going to talk a little bit about that postpartum depression that hits you after you have a baby. We all go through these things. Oh my goodness. I remember when I was going through postpartum a million years ago, shortly after the earth's crust cooled, and my mother told me, "You be all right. You're a tough old bird."
Gee, thanks.
Thank you. But I was all right, and my mom was right. So there you go. But Jesus helped me through that. So, all right. I love you all. Take care. God bless. And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Boy, I just love talking to Elizabeth about all things psychology. Isn't that kid amazing? She just rattles off the statistics and all the information, and I'm there like, whoa, I'm so proud of her. I hope these conversations are helping you. They're helping me. We don't have to feel alone. You're not alone. Not only do you have people here, like Elizabeth and I are saying, we haven't achieved perfection in by any shape of the imagination, but we want to have those conversations so you don't feel alone. You need to know there are other people going through either what you're going through or very similar circumstances or other things that are just as traumatic. I don't know your situation, but I do know a God that cares about everything that you're going through. Jesus wants to help you. Remember what I said in 2 Chronicles 16:9. The eyes of the Lord roam throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in behalf of those who love him, those whose hearts are perfect toward him. How do we have a perfect heart toward God? We love God. We pray to God. We read his word. We worship him. How do you worship him? With every decision you make in a day to be pleasing to him, to try to be holy and living a separated life away from this very wicked and dark world that we're living in. Remember, Jeremiah 33:3 says, call unto me and I will answer thee and show you great and mighty things that you never knew were possible, right? God's there. He wants to do the miraculous in your life. And remember what I said, please, please get help. If you need help physically, get those labs done with your doctor. Go in and talk to your medical doctor. Again, we are not professionals. We can only share what we've been through and what we suggest to you. So as always, I'm going to ask you to please like and subscribe to this podcast. Doing so works with the algorithm and gets this message out to as many people as possible. And we are so excited that we had such an overwhelming response to last time. I hope this I hope this video does even better and gets that word out to even more people. If you happen to be local in the Fort Wayne area, please consider coming by and visiting Abundant Life Church in Fort Wayne on 3301 East Coliseum Boulevard. We would love to have you there. We have Sunday services at 11 a.m. We have Wednesday services at 7 p.m. We also have, on YouTube, the channel Abundant Life Church, probably. I'll have Jody link it below. And you can check us out online, see if you like it. But you would really, really love Pastor Rich and Sister Tamara Brown. They are a dynamic, spirit-filled, loving, knowledgeable. They are amazing, amazing pastors. And we'd just love to have you with us. So until next time, go over there on Instagram, find us at Ladies Life FW, and also at the Empow Her Podcast with Leslie Steager. And until next time, I hope you take care. God bless. Bye-bye.